one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
It's Discover Crypto. Every day on the channel, we teach you how to make money with digital assets. Smash that like button because we have a huge show for you today. We got to talk about how low can Bitcoin go in a bear market environment. We're also seeing a lot of interesting things with altcoins. The ETH charts are going to shock you. And then we have Jeffrey Epstein all over the crypto industry. Joined here by TJ and Drew, who might have a triple packed header today.
Yeah, hey.
How are you folks doing today?
We're doing good. We're doing good. I'm happy to be here. It was a wild weekend, obviously. Great job covering the news as it broke. We had a lot of, obviously price movement over the weekend. See a massive CME gap to the upside now, which we're going to talk about. A lot of bears calling for very low prices, which we've been talking about. And, my favorite thing to mention every single time I'm on the show, Clarity Act. Big day in Washington today with banks and crypto industry going at it. I think the odds, I saw somebody here in the chat saying I'm going to pull them up here shortly. Odds of that passing today have passing soon have skyrocketed. So all sorts of different stuff. But we got DJ S here saying no lower. This is it. I think we've got a pretty interesting. So let me know in the chat, and we're going to talk about our theories on this as well. But let me know in the chat, was that the bottom in your opinion? 78, call it, maybe 77 and change, or do you think we're going lower? One side said that was the bottom, and then our DCA and price says happy bear market, guys. But
definitely
yeah, TZ,
mixed bag over here. We went even lower than that, TJ. Went as low as 74,600 over the weekend. So Bitcoin pushed down into a very, very serious level there. Looking at the rest of the market, we are starting to see a little bit of a bounce, especially on the 1 hour. You're going to see a lot of green. ETH is now up 2.2% just in the last 1 hour here. Bitcoin's up 2.1% for the day. BNB is up. Solana is up 4.3%. Tron with a little bit of a pullback. And we have Cardano up 4.6%. TJ, I bought some ADA under 30 cents. So people are wondering, DZ, are you out there? Are you actively buying Cardano? I did go ahead and pull the trigger on a small bag. Now we look, MYX is up 27%. World Liberty Fi, despite the FUD from Abu Dhabi, we're going to talk about that. Is there corruption here? That is up 11%, and Hype is up 11%, is one of the tokens I have been slowly accumulating. Looking for some losses here. Monero in the red, Gold in the red, and Hash and Pump.Fund in the red there. And interesting to see Bitcoin is starting to claw back some of the profits from the gold and silver markets.
Yeah, and interestingly, you want to give one of my favorite projects here, shout out Morpho, up 16% on the day, actually holding as up for the week. So even the last 7 days still up, given everything that just happened. There are a couple altcoin gems out there that we have been talking about. Morpho, I think because of a lot of the integrations they're getting with Coinbase and a lot of these online staking things. We covered vaults a little bit last week with Kraken and Aave and all those sorts of things. So Morpho riding that wave, and then Canton Network, which I know we did an interview with. We've got that in the can, and then potentially a follow-up with the founder of Canton coming well, also holding up. So there are some winners out there.
Yeah, there are some winners, and it's good to finally claw back some of this. The silver investors, they're dancing on the Bitcoin graves, and we've been predicting for weeks this is not going to end well for the silver investors. And I have even more stats that are going to be quite shocking. But hey, this is just another day on the golf course. Par for the course if you're in the crypto industry here. Now, let's look at Bitcoin. I want to look at one thing here on the weekly chart. We are seeing some interesting pushing into the levels that we identified this weekend here. I still think there is a chance we can push a little bit lower. We're at 74 and some change. Still might entertain the 71, 72 and some change. Strong possibility Bitcoin is going to go that low. Now, Crypto Rover, I love this take here, but I'm going to tell you why this is bearish in a little bit. Congratulations, you're now buying Bitcoin below the average purchase price of the US Bitcoin ETFs. So pretty strong line in the sand that Bitcoin has crossed, TJ. I don't know if you had any thoughts about now the cost basis is below what Wall Street is buying their Bitcoin for.
Yeah, it's also dangerously close to break even for strategy, which I just want to go ahead and answer. Like, people out there saying, "Oh, Sailor's going to start selling. He's in the red now." Like, no, he's not. But it is worth noting that they are close to break even or going into the red. So these, to me,
Briefly in the red, actually.
yeah, I mean, below their average buy, if because obviously they were buying large amounts at much higher prices. So, no, there's a lot of people that I know that are experienced in the space. They're setting buy orders. Almost pulled the trigger this weekend. I'm potentially thinking about trying to catch some at 72. I've still got a significant amount of cash. You guys know I've been talking about for a while. Kind of put a third in at one level, another third in, and I'm holding this last third for a potential 69 to 71K. I don't know if I'm going to be that lucky. I have mixed feelings on if this last weekend was the lowest. Now, if Clarity Act passes and we get other stuff, there's also Kevin Warsh, that's in the mix now, who's traditionally pretty hawkish. Kind of a surprise pick by Trump in a lot of different ways. He doesn't seem to be a fan of lowering interest rates. So, I do think we're near a bottom. And like, if you guys remember when we were at these prices previously, 76 and 74, I was saying you don't have to time an exact bottom. Being close to bottoms are good. So
yes,
all that to say, a lot of people that I know that are very smart are buying at these levels. We have shorts kind of capitulating at these levels, according to Kobayashi letter. So,
well, speaking of buying at these levels, is it our Cardano, we're just going to say they have 3K. They want Arrow or Bitcoin. I don't know. Bitcoin coin is a meme coin. Stay away from that thing. But Bitcoin or Arrow, I like the both bro question answer, the 50-50 answer here.
Yeah, and again, it depends on your allocations. Do you not have any Bitcoin? Do you not have any Arrow? You should definitely have some Bitcoin. Should you split it 50-50? Should you split it? If you want to weight it by market cap, maybe you do 60-70% Bitcoin, 30% or so in Arrow, and then it kind of Arrow has the higher upside, Bitcoin has the lower floor. But probably, what's Arrow at? I mean, I haven't even checked over the weekend. You're probably getting a pretty good entry. Yeah, 40 cents. That's about the 39 and change. That's about the number I'd say to watch on Arrow most of the time. So yeah, there it is. Yeah, 39 cents. So bouncing back strong-ish. But if you look at the all, it's kind of at a floor, and it's hard to see on this. But yeah, 38.40 is a pretty solid floor for Aerodrome.
All right, there you go, folks. Now, speaking of the floors, let's talk about the ceilings. Where are we compared to some of these ceilings? It's a lot scary for some of these assets. Now, Google was hitting a new all-time high. The Gemini bot is really doing well, and it seems like their AI revenue is kind of lifting their expectations for the forward-looking guidance for Alphabet here. S&P down 1%, Amazon 8%, NVIDIA 10%. I'm going to skip around a little bit. Gold down 13%, Tesla down 14%, Palantir down 29%, Bitcoin down 40%, ETH down 55%, MicroStrategy 73%, Dogecoin 87%, Fartcoin 92%, and worse than all of those, Trump coin down 94%, and Melania coin down 99%. So we're seeing massive drawdowns across most of the asset classes here. But let me give you a little perspective on silver. This is just a good way of showing the health of the Bitcoin market and the volatility of the precious metals market. Silver did a 6.6 since the bottom of the year 22. Bitcoin did a 7.8 since the bottom of 22. Silver dumped 40% in 5 days after reaching the top. It took Bitcoin 4 months to do the same. In hindsight, it isn't even that bad. TJ, silver was the poop coin all along.
Yeah, don't tell the silver bugs.
No, they're trying to roast me over the coals for saying sell at 122.
Yeah, they definitely were. They came out with the pitchforks when you started calling a top. And I think it's important for people to remember not to have recency bias. We kind of outlined that, like, hey, Bitcoin was doing good in these years. You kind of want to look at a long-term time horizon, especially when you're investing in things like commodities. Bitcoin, I consider to be a commodity, and metals, of course. So different things can run at different times, but at the end of the day, everything that's moving positively right now, or even on somewhat of a pullback, is tied to, I say, the global macro trends, which is no trust in government, no trust in fiat currencies. Basically, the faith in
Institutions
fiat
as a whole.
What's that?
No trust in institutions as a whole.
Absolutely. The institutions that govern us, or however they, there's fraud everywhere. There's very little trust in central banks. Central banks are the ones that are buying a lot of these gold assets and silver assets. So the people, I think, I've decided to take things into their own hands, which in a lot, I think is a very positive thing. But be very careful because the people often get wrecked. So seeing Bitcoin pulling back. I did see somebody in the chat mention this, which I agree. John Dalton, even, we'll talk about Ethereum here in a little bit, but really Ethereum starting to look very juicy at a lot of these levels. And John Dalton, one of our major traders in the Discord, he's crushed it with metals and many other calls along the way, saying he's moving on Ethereum at these levels. So that's worth noting. I'm already pretty loaded up on Ethereum. I got it last time it went under 3K. Not as low as it is now. I got it more in the, I think, 2,800, not 2,400. But, it's, again, I don't know. It's a tough call to say take shots on lower cap altcoins right now because things have been so unstable. And if we do go to a, say, 70K Bitcoin, these alts do have a lot further to fall. But to me, Bitcoin and Ethereum, very strong, very stable, very clear. They're going to be here for the long term. None of this tokenization is happening without Ethereum. What are we looking? Is that
this is John Dalton's silver call? This box was up there for a very, very long time. I said 125, and a lot of that was just coming from his analysis, very close to his profit taking strategy. So
yeah,
I mean,
he's
John Dalton called this trade almost perfectly there.
Yeah,
and this is in the trading Discord.
Absolutely, yeah. The link is in the description. So yeah, he does. He's an excellent trader, and he has been for a long time. I've followed him for years. So shout out to him on that.
100%. Now, we do have a very interesting article talking about some further downside price action for Bitcoin. Bitcoin risks deeper downside as price action mirrors the past bear markets. Let's see what they're talking about here. So it's remaining bearish as the bulls struggle near multi-month lows here. CME future gaps, though, may provide some temporary relief into the new week. We're going to look at these CME gaps shortly. Now, Crypto Bullet drew particular attention to the loss of the 20-week EMA, an event that preceded previous bear markets. We've talked about this level before. Rec Capital agreed. History's on the side of additional downside continuation. So far, history repeating with downside occurring after the bull market EMA crossover. The crossover involves the 21 and the 50-week EMAs. You're going to see the lines right here where you see the red dip below the orange. Typically, that's going to create a bear market. Now, if you look at 2022, we're in the same situation. We have a little parallel range with the bear flag. Looks like the bear flag's about to play out. And this happens as this shorter term moving average crosses below the longer term moving average. And after it crossed, Bitcoin would continue to move to the downside. Let's be very generous and come in at the bottom of that candle. Bitcoin would still fall an additional 60%. Now, if we were to do something similar here, and again, being generous from the bottom of that candle, 60%. Woo! That's where these analysts are getting these calls for a 30K Bitcoin.
That ain't happening. I'm sorry. 30K is too much. I can get behind some lower prices, but 30K.
Chat, put in your bottom number. A lot of people are going to say, well, it happened already. It was the 75K, 74K. What is your bottom number? If we continue, I mean, let's just say we sweep this slightly. How much lower do you think we go, TJ? Is it 1K? Is it 5K? I mean, are we hitting the 60s in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the most likely bear case scenario to play out, which again, is still not 100%. I think a decent part of me thinks 74 is a pretty strong support. But to me, it's that 69 to 71K range. Previous cycle all-time high. Now, could we go slightly below it, touch 65 or something like that? Potentially. But I've been doing this for many, many cycles. It very often goes back and retests the previous cycle all-time high. So when 20K in November 2022, it went a little below, hit 16, briefly, maybe for a day, maybe it was even less than 24 hours. So 69K to me seems plausible. That being said, 74 is close enough. And some of these prices right now, these are the accumulation range prices for me. I probably shouldn't get greedy going for 69 to 70K. I just a lot of times I wait for these things to play out for 24, 48 hours, kind of watch where everything settles. Obviously, it was a low liquidity weekend. We had global tensions with Iran and everything going on. So that I think could have caused some of this. We got a new Fed chair, just a lot going on in the markets right now. So to me, this seems very, very strong area to be accumulating, whether you're accumulating Bitcoin, Ethereum, Chainlink, or your favorite altcoin. I think, these are the accumulation ranges you want to be buying in, not selling in. So if you're thinking about selling and walking away, that's the main thing I would say right now. If you're thinking about selling and walking away from crypto today or this weekend, you're frustrated, you're down, now is not the time to walk away. Now is the time to double down, load up. In my opinion, this is when I put most of my funds in, not get my funds out. If you're getting out here, you have to ask yourself, where are you going? Where are you putting it? And to me, there's, the dollar's not safe. Metals have had their rise. I think maybe everybody should have some portion of their wealth in gold. But to me, Bitcoin provides a lot of utility, a lot of functionality, and asymmetric upside. So I see no signs that the global economy isn't moving towards Bitcoin, towards Ethereum, towards a tokenization. I saw an article, I think Larry Fink from BlackRock said BlackRock wants to tokenize 100% of their funds. Every fund that they run, they want it tokenized. And that means right now, Ethereum, so we've already mentioned Canton Network is one to watch. We'll probably be doing some more uploads on that. Kathy Wood did a great breakdown. I don't know if it was over the weekend, but I saw it over the weekend. So don't let the fear overtake you in these times. These are the times that wealth is made and capitulation lost if you're selling at these levels. So that would be my encouragement, is don't walk away at the bottom. I've seen too many people do it.
Riches are made at the top. Wealth is made at the bottom.
Ooh,
folks.
that's
Just
good.
a nice little,
I like that.
I don't even, I might have paraphrased that, but maybe that's an actual quote. I think that might be a DZ paraphrase.
That's a DZ quote now. So there you go.
It is now. I'm going to put it in the book, chapter 52. We're making a new one. Now, Jan Drew, appreciate the little post there, hitting us with the $2 super chat, but we got a couple more targets to talk about. Hopes of a short-term rebound, meanwhile hung on the newly opened gaps in the CME Group's Bitcoin futures market, often acting as a low time frame price magnet. The nearest gap is near 84,000, so to the upside, and trader Killa thus predicted the 84K would be filled over the next few weeks, but I'm here to say it could happen over the next few days, potentially over the next few hours if Bitcoin continues to pump. Now, spot trading below the realized price. Now, remember, I said, seeing that you're buying below Wall Street could be bearish. This is why. Spot trading below the realized price of investors holding Bitcoin between 12 and 18 months was the writing on the wall. So this is going to be a lot of the ETF investors. These people bought Bitcoin via BlackRock, and now they're underwater. And so this is what happens. So this is why it's kind of bearish. When spot price remains below a flat or realized cost here, rallies tend to fail as supply seeks break-even exits. So we got to get the weaker hands out. When it comes up to break-even, they just kind of drop their Bitcoin and they run for the hills. It's for the diehards, for the fanatics. When the paper hands are done, the Wall Street paper hands, that's when Bitcoin's going to really get its rise, folks. That's kind of what we're going to be waiting for from a technical level. Now, to the CME gap, it's the longest gap we've seen in a long time, the largest one in a while here. And I looked, last time we had one that took a while, this was about 3 weeks. It took 20 days to fill. You can see we opened higher, and it would take a significant amount of time before we would see it breach that level. Open higher, stayed high, really wouldn't get pushed down for a while. You can see a gap right there. It would later fill. Here you can see a gap right there. It would later fill. And now look how big this gap is, TJ. So it needs to, for these traders to fully exit their position, assuming some bot towards the end of the day. Yeah, we're going to get pushed up to about 84K. And like I said, this is starting to look like it could happen in hours, folks. Bitcoin's starting to go on a pretty serious run, starting to get a little bit of momentum. Maybe the 10 a.m. manipulation is going to happen to the upside today, TJ. It's good when it does happen to the upside. And just a little explainer for the CME gap. CME, they're closely monitored by traders. While not guaranteed to fill, historically have been revisited more often than not. Is the difference between the futures price at closing time and the price when the exchange opens next. Because unlike spot Bitcoin, futures do not trade 24/7. Significant price moves occur during the breaks or over the weekend, and it produces these gaps. They're closely watched by traders. They tend to fill within days or weeks, although sometimes over a longer time frame. It's an observed tendency rather than a certainty, but it does seem to occur more often than not. So this is just a good magnet for Bitcoin's price. 84K to the upside. And so there's a lot of people calling for bearish prices, but you could see that temporary relief. Maybe wait for that confirmed breakout above 84K before you just start saying, all right, bull market back on. There's no more downside, no more red months, no more red candles. I would wait for some further confirmation. I would wait to start flipping some of these exponential moving averages into the green before I would go full-blown Michael Saylor bull tard, TJ.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that in a second.
Where you want to be careful, a lot of times it's not a bad idea to wait and watch the trend. But what you don't want to do, like if you've got cash that you're looking to allocate, doing it in the 70s, in my opinion, is better, because I do agree with that analysis there, DZ. We will likely move back up towards the CME gap. But at 84, 85K doesn't mean we're out of the woods. We could very easily go back up to 85K and then make another, lower low, so to speak. And that's what you want to be careful of. Do not, like, if you're waiting for confirmation of a trend change, you'd much more need it up around 100, 105 than 85. 85 now is starting to become a little bit like no man's land. So either put it in at 74, 76, 78, but don't be thinking like, oh, okay, 80, we're safe, or 82, we're safe, 84, because you're not. Like you just pointed out there, there's a very, if we reject off 85 again, not unlikely that.
Don't think Binance's SAFU fund is going to save the Bitcoin bear market. They did buy 100 million, but that's beans, and compared to where we see some weakened volatility.
Well, and they're doing it with the profits, of wrecking all of you. So they loaded this stuff up on October 11th. Well, we all know what happened on 10/10, and the industry in a lot of ways has turned on CZ. A lot of people taking shots at him. And him saying, oh, well, things aren't gonna go well. I do think a lot of the Clarity Act market structure bill is pointed at some of the rogue market makers, some of the exchanges that like to play fast and loose with the rules. So the Wild West is ending, but not yet, and we're gonna have to wait and see what happens. Again, today is a big day. I do see the odds are up to like 60-70% on that passing this year, but obviously there's a big difference between January, February, and November. So if it can pass early this year, I do think we'll see that trickle in, and the big, beautiful bill kicking in. All that stuff will matter. But the big wild card, in my opinion, is Kevin Warsh and his approach on stuff.
Yeah, what is his stance going to be, and what kind of environment is he going to inherit in May? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. They can't let Bitcoin fail. Too many large companies and countries will collapse. There's going to be people who want that collapse. So there will be competing narratives. There's people who want to watch the world burn, the Joker mentality.
And I would argue I don't even necessarily agree with that. There's much greater likelihood of global depression if the banking system fails, because we're basically leveraged to the hilt, on the banking system. That's why they're so afraid that, 4% on stable. They're fighting with everything that they have to prevent 4% stablecoin yields. Like, that shows how threatened they are and how illiquid a lot of these banks really are if people were to try to withdraw money. If $20 billion was tried to be withdrawn at one time on some of these banks, like, I think they would run into liquidity issues. We did even have a bank go under, I think Friday.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, it can happen. It can happen fast. Let's talk about Michael Saylor for a second. Is he under? What's his average cost? Did he buy more? Did he top blast this past week? Yes, yes, no, yes. All right, looking at Saylor strategy, they bought 75 million in Bitcoin as the price briefly dipped below 75K. His average price was basically $88,000. Bitcoin started the week at $200 above that. It would reach 90K. He top blasted, and then before it would briefly plummet below 75K on Sunday. So did he top blast for the week? Basically, he top blasted for the week. They now have 713,000 Bitcoin. The average price, $76,000 per coin. So he is in the green right now, but he was in the red, 76,000. You can see, let's go to the 10-minute, 12-minute candles here. There was a period, he's probably happy it happened over the weekend. Yeah, he was deep in the red. So below this, Michael Saylor is at a loss there. But they launched this back in August 2020. Is this the first time? The answer is no. It traded lower in 22, 2 years later, traded lower than their average price for the first time. But the bigger question is, when it's lower, what does Michael Saylor do? Does he buy more? Does he buy less? In a perfect world, he'd buy more below the cost basis, but He actually buys less, folks. It dipped below 30K in May 22. Their average price was right at 30,600. It actually caused them to slow their buying, and they only accumulated 8,000 Bitcoin in the year 2022. And if you look, I mean, they just got 8,000. They just bought 855. So just seeing this 1 week purchase is 10% what they got for that entire year. And so it is frustrating. In a perfect world, yeah, he would buy a lot more in the red. I guess it's more of a psychological thing, TJ, if I had to guess why they don't go in a little bit deeper. They don't want to spook investors just continually buying an asset as it's on its way down. They do like to get in on the uptrend. Problem is, I wish they'd buy a little bit more during the dips.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, they've bought a lot, obviously, while Bitcoin has been dipping, and you could argue that's part of what's been preventing some of the dips.
True.
And I think there's a lot of factors that come into play with with strategies bias. It's still hard to not call it MicroStrategy. Obviously they're raising funds to do this. When do you think it's easier to raise funds? When prices are going up or prices are going down? Like probably when prices are going up. How long does that take for them to close those rounds? A significant amount of time. What is their obligation? Say that they're going, like, basically I'm sure there's language that says we're going to use these funds for this quickly, so it's not like they can necessarily sit on stuff unless they've designated for that. They are sitting on billions in cash to cover any of their obligations, so they're not going to need to sell anything to make payments. Not only are there none due until 2027, but even when they come due, they've got plenty of cash to do it. So again, immediately want to dispel any FUD that strategy is going to be selling and they're going to dump the whole market. Like, that's just uneducated, in my opinion. Again, if you haven't done your research, you don't understand the way strategy works, you don't understand Michael Saylor, he is not somebody whose conviction is going to be wavering with daily, weekly, monthly, or even annual price changes. He's in this 10, 50, 100-year type timeline. And, in a lot of ways, from what I'm seeing, again, you got Stanley Druckenmiller out there saying this. You've got Paul Tudor Jones out there talking about fixed income cash and safety hedges for the credit markets and all that sort of stuff. Well, Stretch, one of Strategy's products, one of the strongest things, so they've got kind of both sides of the coverage. If you want high volatility, high upside, they're holding a whole lot of Bitcoin, and they're really setting themselves up to be a powerhouse when it comes to lending. But if the price crashes more and the whole world goes into a depression, Strategy is extremely well positioned to be a savior for a lot of these markets and a lot of these banks, and acquire other things that aren't run nearly as sound. They're very low debt, very high equity, very high savings, and with cash flow. So
and there's a lot of rules governing what you can and cannot invest in, and it's easier to invest in MicroStrategy than versus iBit or spot crypto or spot Bitcoin. So they're unable to buy these other things, but they're able to buy MicroStrategy. But you might have seen Michael Saylor in the Epstein files. We're going to take a little conspiratorial turn, but to me, the real important thing was Epstein's links to Bitcoin's creation. What is Epstein's links? Well, before we get into that, we got to take a little side trip here. There was a time Bitcoin devs visited the CIA. They went to the CIA headquarters. This is early in Bitcoin's lifespan. Let's kind of break this down first. So it's Gavin Andresen. Always throw it up with the Andresens there. One of the earliest lead developers of Bitcoin met with representatives from the CIA to give a presentation on Bitcoin. This happened in 2011. It was by the NQTel venture capital firm for the U.S. government, for the intelligence arm. His stated purpose was to educate the CIA on Bitcoin's potential, explaining how the decentralized technology worked. During the event, the CIA agent purchased a Bitcoin for roughly $15 to show his bosses, the guy smoking the cigar in that backlit room. Satoshi's reaction: just before the meeting, about 24 hours before, Satoshi Nakamoto, synonymous creator of Bitcoin, expressed concerns about the attention Bitcoin was receiving, telling another developer in a private email that they had moved on to other things. Following the meeting with the CIA, Satoshi ceased all communication with the development team. Now, TJ, a lot of people aren't aware of this part of Bitcoin's history. This is kind of the backdrop where people talk about, is there a link between intelligence agencies and Bitcoin? They point to this concrete example. I don't know if you had any thoughts on. Before we get into the angle of Epstein.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, is there a link between the early days in crypto and intelligence communities? Of course there is. Now, does that mean that intelligence communities were the creators or were Satoshi? No, it doesn't. So yes, of course, the people on the cutting edge of technology and the cutting edge of digital payments have links to the intelligence communities. That's the way the intelligence communities work. They're always trying to recruit and kind of deal with the brightest and best minds that can move things anonymously. Like Bitcoin is less anonymous today. Obviously, a lot of people understand that, but its inception was was designed to be a pseudonymous, at least digital e-cash, and a lot of the people in that space were very, very, very connected in that world way before Bitcoin even. So no surprise to me whatsoever. To me, the thing that is, in my opinion, very, I don't know, glaringly obvious or much more apparent that it has ties to the intelligence community would be Tether, USDT. And so things that came not long after Bitcoin, in my opinion, are things, stable coins, all those sorts of things. Now, I'm not saying they're bad or evil. Everybody should stay away from them. But yeah, people are wanting to monitor transactions. That didn't start with Bitcoin. It started way, almost as early as possible. They want to monitor you. They don't want you to monitor them. That's basically the way the wealth and the power of the world works. Wealthy, powerful people also have ties to intelligence communities. I mean, basically, Chappelle was basically out there in his last special saying Diddy was an intelligence asset, So,
Well, that was clear. That was clear.
Yeah, I agree. And that's that's what I'm saying about Tether. So yeah, you're gonna find fingerprints of intelligent people all over the place, but that doesn't
Gifted and talented. The program that you saw in school for advanced students, that was supposedly one of the ways they would pluck early candidates.
Yeah, you could argue. I mean, I've heard a pretty interesting case, like that Sailor is tied to intelligence communities, or JD Vance, or Peter Thiel, or the list goes on and on and on and on. Well, Peter Thiel definitely, but
don't talk about James Bowman, aka JD Vance. Why would he change his name? That's not a thing, strange people do. Anyways, let's get back into the Epstein files. So what is Epstein's link with Bitcoin? It is stemming from this right here. Epstein files reveal contact with Bitcoin dev before the CIA briefing. So new emails released by the Justice Department as part of their disclosure of the Epstein files reveal Jeffrey Epstein spoke with Gavin Andresen 2 days before he visited the CIA headquarters to discuss Bitcoin in June of 2011. He was the successor to Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. He personally chose him to be the lead maintainer of Bitcoin's development and gave him commit key access for Bitcoin Core. Now, despite the resignation of Satoshi Nakamoto, he followed through on his controversial April promise, speaking at the CIA headquarters to discuss Bitcoin. A week before, socialite, all-in podcaster Jason Calacanis responded to an email from Jeffrey Epstein promising to send along Andresen's contact information. I would like to get in touch with the Bitcoin guys. Epstein emailed Jason Calacanis 8 days before the meeting. So we have Epstein reaching out into his network. I want to reach out to these Bitcoin devs. 8 days later, these Bitcoin devs are speaking at the CIA headquarters. Definitely going to be a little bit of, answering what's happening between the lines. I think it's a safe assumption to say that's maybe not entirely coincidental. It doesn't stop there. July 2014, now we're a few years ahead, Epstein and Peter Thiel explicitly discussing anti-Bitcoin pressure. Thiel asks, do you think this is the first step in upping the anti-Bitcoin pressure? Epstein replies by attacking Bitcoin's ambiguity, currency versus property, public ledger classification, and then says, more when I see you, implying they were going to have a physical meeting. Bitcoin was never meant by them to win. It was meant to prepare the public. Now we're getting into speculative territory. Normalize digital money first. Funnel adoptions into systems with kill switches and governors like we see with Tether, like we see with USDC. CBDCs, permission stablecoins, regulated rails, Epstein services around crypto influence networks. Brock Pierce enters the frame, met with Epstein. He later became tied to Tether, issuer controlled, permissioned, opaque, legal reality. No public proof of a formal conspiracy, and courts haven't ruled on intent, but the pattern, incentives, paper trail are clear enough to anyone paying attention. The bottom line, Bitcoin was a threat to them. They used it as a gateway drug to CBDCs and stablecoins. Trump continuing the trajectory. Don't fall for it. One Bitcoin, self-custody, no issuer. This is consistent with his previous analysis about Epstein trying to compromise developers. And that's the email right there. And TJ keeps going, but I don't know if you have any thoughts so far.
No, I mean, it definitely keeps going. And I would say many people that care about Bitcoin and the ethos of Bitcoin have long said one of the obvious attack vectors is the developer community. And it's a pretty tight-knit, small community. You've even heard negative things about Adam Back and their Block One, because they fund a lot of Bitcoin's developments. Now, I believe, Adam Back is one of the good guys, one of the guys who truly does care about freedom and the cypherpunk ethos. But you definitely have two forces in the world, and this goes well outside of Bitcoin. You have one that's for freedom and one that's for control, one that's for free choice and one that's for basically centralized governance. That, I think if everybody listened to me, everything would be better. And one person says, no, I think people should have freedom to decide for themselves. That kind of tension exists across the entire planet, across all sorts of different things. I could go down a whole tangent on that it's kind of like the meaning of life in a lot of different ways, is the kind of to sort through that exact issue. But Bitcoin is another place where that tension exists. There's a faction that firmly believes freedom of choice and freedom of will is what's best for humanity. And then there's another faction that firmly believes if everybody would fall under centralized control, we could do better things as a human race. I believe in freedom, but you're gonna get a battle when you try to do that. And so I think Adam Back and a lot of the Bitcoin core developers do believe in that ethos. But the developers have always been, in my opinion, early on it was maybe the network and mining. Now I think that's a lot less likely to be compromised. But today, even when you looked at, the knots versus core stuff that was going on, if you guys really follow the Bitcoin knots, Bitcoin core, you could see cracks in, that wealthy people or intelligent people might try to find a foothold in and find a way to compromise the Bitcoin network. I believe Bitcoin development is secure and is good, but time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. And at the end of the day, still 21 million. Ran from Banter said Bitcoin OGs are bored with Bitcoin because it's not the white paper. I guess getting away from the ethos of digital money for a peer-to-peer payment system, it's now more of a digital gold. And I think it is clear. I don't want to say clear, but it does seem the block size wars, there was a camp pushing for it to what would eventually make it unusable for currency. With the block size wars, it increased in size, so you can't use Bitcoin for coffee due to the, just be too much data on the block stream. So some might say even the block size wars of 2017 was led by intelligence agencies. But folks, we're not done. I see you guys asking about Michael Saylor. Yes, Michael Saylor. He got cooked by Epstein's publicist. Basically said, talking about Michael Saylor with this nice AI airbrush photo, he's so creepy, I don't even know if I could take his money. I don't know how to blackmail him. He has no personality and doesn't understand social behavior. So what we're seeing is similar to Elon. They're hinting, hey, come to this party. It's going to be a lot of fun times. Their autism was so high. They're like, I got to stay up and code till 2 a.m. Didn't go to the party. And Saylor, not blackmailable. It's kind of a good sign. So Saylor, I would say, coming out unscathed on this. What about Gary Gensler? Well, he's scathed. He's quite scathed. Epstein got Gensler the job at MIT. Under this guy goes by Joy Chi. He's a Japanese VC. Ito, due to Gensler-Epstein mutual Clinton connection. They're speculating what favor did Gensler deliver in exchange for the SEC chairman position? What did Epstein have on him? This is a email to Lawrence Summers, also known as Larry Summers. He was the Secretary of Treasury under Bill Clinton. He was close with the Obama administration as well. So the tentacles keep going. Now we have the XRP Epstein angle. And I'm going to tell you what no one else is saying. There's a dog not barking that I'm going to explain in a second. I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but I wouldn't be all surprised if this is just the tip of the iceberg talking about this email right here. What is this email? This Epstein doc shows Blockstream, a Bitcoin company, co-founder, saw XRP and XLM supporters as enemies. So David Schwartz, he's the former Ripple CTO. This guy right here, Chief Technology Officer, very, very smart guy. He highlighted a 12-year-old email from the Epstein documents that he believes reveals hostility towards Ripple, XRP, and Stellar XLM during the early years of crypto development. Schwartz suggesting it may only be the tip of the iceberg. Austin Hill sent the 2014 email to Jeffrey Epstein, and Joichi Ito, the same name I was talking about earlier, is this Japanese VC. Let's just go ahead and say he is probably blackmailable because he was like a genius at 13 years old. He was literally like coding alongside adults at the age of 13. But then when he hit his 20s, he became a DJ. That would suggest the guy liked to party. He liked the women. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. Probably made him blackmailable. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Now, he criticized in this email to Epstein and this VC, criticized Stellar while raising concerns about Jed McCaleb. Jed McCaleb is going to be the link between Stellar and Ripple. He started working at Ripple. He would later found Stellar. Hill said Stellar and Ripple created problems for Blockstream and other Bitcoin companies, suggesting that investors should not support competing blockchain projects at the same time. It revealed that co-founders discussed reducing or removing investments tied to Epstein and Ito. So we're going to take away your investment if you keep talking to those Ripple guys. The email
also worth noting, Jed McCaleb, founder of Mt. Gox. You know, that's a pretty key fact too. Not mentioned here, but go ahead.
There you go. And the email reignited XRP community theories that Bitcoin maxis have persistently worked against Ripple. Hill was the co-founder of Blockstream, Bitcoin-focused infrastructure company that was founded also in 2014. The message carried the subject line criticizing Stellar, sent directly to Epstein and Ito. Reid Hoffman also appeared on the email as a copied recipient. Hill revealed that other co-founders asked him to scale back or completely remove their allocation. This allocation appeared to relate to an investment or ownership stake in the Blockstream company. He justified this by arguing Ripple and Stellar and McCaleb's involvement in both projects were harmful to the crypto ecosystem that Blockstream aimed to build. At the time it was sent, Stellar had just launched. Specifically, Jed McCaleb, he founded Stellar shortly after leaving Ripple, which itself had been operating for about 2 years at this point. Blockstream also established 2014. Ito and Epstein were both connected to Blockstream as investors or potential participants. Ito, co-founder of Digital Garage, Japanese tech company that invested in Blockstream. He also served as an advisor to the Stellar Development System or Foundation, during that same year. And Schwartz is saying, tip of the iceberg. Let me tell you my thoughts first, and then I'm going to throw it to you, TJ. This is also suggesting, this email suggests Epstein invested in XRP as well. Hey, we can't have you invested in Blockstream if you're investing in these other companies. How come no one's talking about, everyone's talking about, oh, Blockstream trying to kill Ripple. What about Epstein investing in Ripple and XLM? Potentially here.
I had the
so Epstein's behind Ripple?
I had the same, takeaway that like they're talking about backing both horses. So
yeah, no one's talking about this.
I know. And if the fact that I would imagine Blockstream still considers Ripple enemy number one when they're out there, lobbying and, kind of trying to get political groups to against a Bitcoin only strategic reserve, trying to get it to include other things. So like you got Jack Mallers last week out there claiming Ripple is enemy number one, spending millions of dollars, holding up the Clarity Act, holding up the Bitcoin strategic reserve progress in the US. So, that's kind of what I'm talking about there. Those are the two warring factions that we're talking. Oh, you got Drew in here. You're going to have some of Drew's
people want to know Drew's unhinged take here.
Yeah.
Drew, don't get the YouTube channel deleted, but what do you think here?
Sure. So I think that it's either a defector from the NSA that knew how to build workarounds around the randomizer in Bitcoin, or it's them themselves designing Bitcoin to be kind of the place that we move to in a Bretton Woods 2.0 type situation. I know TJ had mentioned some of what Kevin Warsh was talking about with the 45-year cycle. And I think in general, Bitcoin is going to have a place at the table of new money. These old Epstein connections, man, I mean, I think it's a 3-letter agency has written all over what the Epstein empire was putting together in terms of the people they were getting involved with, the political clout that they were able to build and hold over these people's heads. And honestly, the whole situation, it's, I still very much so, feel like Bitcoin is a strong asset for the long term, but there are major players involved with it. And I think the highlight of more direct control is with Tether. I do feel that way in my heart. So,
yeah. And I would argue the one that's screaming Fed the most throughout all these emails is Jed McCaleb, founder of Mt. Gox, right there at the beginning, right? The #1 exchange, walked away weeks before the entire thing goes under, walks away completely unscathed with potentially a lot of money, and just left.
And they say the hacks were happening for a long period of time. So some of the hacks happened under his stewardship.
And then just kind of left Carpellis holding the bag, founds Ripple, right? Or XRP and Stellar, creates Stellar, walks away from Ripple completely unscathed, giant bag. He's been selling it for years, had nothing to do with the SEC lawsuit. So a lot of times, to me, one of the things that is a kind of not a giveaway, but a strong indicator that there are powers that be above them protecting them is when they're caught up in a bunch of controversy and seem to walk away with little to no consequences. Jed McCaleb, definitely one of those guys who's been in the middle of some of the biggest scandals or things that happened within crypto and walked away with completely unscathed, no hit whatsoever. Brock Pierce, another one who's not been far from controversy, but seems to have had no consequences, now running Tether.
Former D2 child actor.
Yeah,
I heard his lawyer team does, or maybe
I don't know about D2. I think it was Mighty Ducks 1. I don't think he was in D2.
Oh, his lawyer team does the flying V when they're in court, though, and it's unassailable at this point.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say too many bad things about all these people because I don't want knocks at our doors either. But this when
if
you're in this
hear a helicopter, we'll end the stream immediately, folks.
Yeah, well, and somebody said this earlier in the stream, and I do want to kind of echo that again. I think I was saying it earlier. It's people want to pretend that nothing bad ever happened with Bitcoin in Bitcoin at the beginning, but you have to remember, like, Bitcoin attracted all sorts of different people for all sorts of different reasons. And the amount of people that it attracted for positive freedom reasons was much smaller than the amount of people it attracted for, like, how can I use this for my own gain? How can I use this to be outside of the law? So there's a lot of dark history in the very early days of Bitcoin. So I'm, again, not at all surprised to see Epstein sniffing around these parts. Now, that doesn't mean Epstein created it. Doesn't mean Bitcoin is bad. But I'm also not surprised that they're floating this right now. They're literally running big money, and the banks are literally running both print and video hit pieces against Brian Armstrong for trying to fight for the freedom of DeFi and fight the banks. Like, you fight the banks, you're going to have a battle on your hands.
I think people are seeing their tentacles just extended further than people expected. Ghislaine Maxwell was the Reddit power mod. She was the first mod to hit 1 million karma, the first mod to hit 2 million karma. And of course, Epstein was all over 4chan. Hit that like button if you're on 4chan way back in the day. Little you know, we were being psyoped by the elites the whole time. We kind of knew it, though. We did kind of know it. All right, let's get a palate cleanser for XRP. Smash the like button if you're still holding your XRP. You don't care if Epstein was invested. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to take a little refresher here. This is going to be the ginger for your XRP. No redheads. The ginger for your XRP. Bad taste in your mouth. They did just get a full EU e-money license in Luxembourg. We've talked about, the filing for this. We're waiting for this. It is now finally secured in Ripple Labs' hands. This is going to open up basically the European Union for Ripple money remittances. Big step. So this is very bullish for XRP. One other thing. Oh, are they dumping? They dumped another billion. It's the first of the month, but we have a little bit of some good news here. They pulled back a little bit more than normal. So if you don't know, Ripple releases 1 billion XRP every single month. But if you didn't know, they also pull back some of that. They don't dump the whole billion. It just kind of leaves this wallet. And then they'll usually pull back about 50%. Well, this time, after releasing 1 billion XRP, they locked up 700 million. So I guess it's bullish that they only sold 30% of their billion this month. And so take that as some good news if you're a holder of XRP. And if you didn't know they dumped 1 billion every month, What are you doing? What are you doing? This is one of the things we always talk about when it comes to XRP. Now, let's talk about ETH here for a little bit. Bitmine, their unrealized ETH losses because they're holding this asset at a loss. It is now up to 6.6 billion. This is the 5th largest documented principal trading loss in history if sold here. That's the key, though. They have to sell. They would have to realize these losses. The unrealized losses are now 66% of the record that was held in 2021, the largest ever loss ever occurred there. So Bitmine, deep in the red. But they did an update this morning. They have the latest holdings update for February 2nd. They have almost 11 billion in crypto. A whole lot of ETH here at 2,300, 193 Bitcoin. Still have the Beast Industries stake. They have 8Co holdings, total cash, $586 million. So sitting on a nice amount of cash, zero debt. They're earning staking rewards. Their cash is earning rewards, 3.5 to 3.9. The company's built to ride out ETH and crypto volatility. They're earning income daily. So they should stop a lot of the rumors that, oh, they're insolvent. They're going to have to sell their ETH at a loss. If you see anyone saying they're selling their ETH at a loss, maybe consider unfollowing that person there. Speaking of ETH and Kevin Warsh, TJ, you probably would like this. He's an ETH bull too.
Yeah.
It's only 6, but the man has 9 Bitcoin. It's
yeah.
pretty impressive.
And I'm not sure when that was filed, but yeah, I've seen that. And he said positive things about Bitcoin. You know, he seems to actually be an advocate for Bitcoin in the way that it increases checks and balances against the fiat system. So he's pretty hawkish on, you know, the Fed cutting interest rates. He blasted the Fed in the 2008 crisis for reducing interest rates. So in a lot of ways, you would almost expect him to hold, you know, or some people are even saying, oh, what if he increases interest rates? Now, I don't see that happening. We know Trump has been very much asking for lower interest rates, but he does say very positive things about Bitcoin. There is an interview referencing an Andreessen Horowitz where he said, hey, Mark Andreessen sat me down and showed me the Bitcoin white paper. I wish I grasped it as well as he did then. So he seems to be very positively speaking about Bitcoin, but that doesn't always mean he's going to be growing the Fed's balance sheet. And I think that's, you know, like in a weird way, fiscal responsibility from U.S. government is not what we want to see as Bitcoin holders. We don't want them to do the, you know, in my opinion, the best monetary policy, which would be increase interest rates, crash the whole market, let the system feel the pain and have a reset. You know, that would be, you know, that would crash assets across the board. I don't believe they're going to do that. There's been no indication that they're going to allow that to happen really since the 70s. So, you know, I think
we'll see. I think a lot of these people that get into this position, we're gonna slow down the party. We're gonna turn the volume down on that music. We're gonna quit spiking the punch. They get in there and then they start dancing with the disco ball behind them. You know, they're putting the lampshade on their head and 30 seconds later.
Yeah, they got the power, man. Now they're the belle of the ball and, you know, they get to, you know, feed their own interests. So that's the real question is what are his interests? I want to say he is actually, his father-in-law, I think, is the heir to, it's something Lauder, you know, all the Estee Lauder.
Yeah, we did a deep dive on him Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, his father-in-law is, it's very interesting connections there. Hoover Institute, billions, other families aligned. It's just, we've already crossed the Rubicon today. So maybe
it's all theater is what we'll say. You know, like this is all just designed for us to speculate about, but they're pulling all the strings.
All right, well, let's check in on ETH charts here since we're talking about ETH. It does look like we have recently just pulled up to my level. This is the 5-minute candles here. So during this stream, it has hit this area. What is this area? This is what we highlighted in, I can't remember what exactly videos, the video from the last 4 or 5 days or so. And this is very interesting. Let's go to the 4-hour. I want to show you guys something. We charted this and we gave you a technical level. I'm not the one who invented this. I'm just pointing out what the others have laid out before me. And it's where you just see, all right, where do we touch the top and the bottom? You see a lot of shady, you know, the clickbaiters, they'll start at just, oh, it only touched one. No, DZ waits till it hits both sides. So we hit the top here, we hit the bottom here. It's just going to give us a target. We're not saying it has to go there, but look at that, y'all. Look at that. Look at that. So maybe we are going to have some strong release into the CME gap as Bitcoin gets pulled up. this will lift all other assets, or at least the strong ones. And I think ETH might get pushed into that as well. But we are coming down into this liquidity pocket, and we could potentially reject. So maybe keep an eye out on the smaller time frames. This might be a short if things stay bearish.
Yeah, and it's worth noting 2720 is the CME gap for ETH there. Another thing I wanted to mention, if you're looking for strong projects, I was talking about things that were up on the weekly. I was highlighting Morpho. Just real quick, wanted to show this. I mean, this is an easy way, like Hyperliquid, very strong project. Stable, I'm not real familiar with this one, but Canton, again, strong project, up for the week. Morpho, up for the week. I've seen a lot of fundamental developments for Jupiter as well getting rolled into things. So now it's basically flat, but anything that's held up through this past week is worth keeping an eye on. And to me, Jupiter, something I hold. Morpho,
yeah, we're going to talk about Jupiter. I'm actually up on my Jupiter altcoin purchase in Solana, nice. And that's not something I've seen in a while. These Solana alts have just been bleeding against Solana. We called out Jupiter. This is something interesting. Maybe start rolling some of your Solana into that. I can't even remember when I made that prediction months ago, maybe at this point, 1 or 2 months ago. I checked this morning. I can see my last transaction. I traded X amount of Solana for this Jupiter. I went to Jupe, hit max. I am up in Solana about 25%. So we have upped our Solana purchase to the ETH CME gap. That is going to go basically all the way up. Yeah, about close to around $2,700. So ETH is going to have a magnet to the upside. So ETH should be pretty bullish, assuming it doesn't reject off that level. Now we have some Cardano news. We do have Hoskinson going wolf mode. He is all in. I'm going to sell my Blackhawk, mothball the jet, sell my Lambos, just go all in. Why not? I started from nothing. So if you're buying some ADA, you might be buying a potential bottom with Charles Hoskinson, or maybe it keeps going lower. But hey, I'm not kidding. I actually bought some ADA today. A lot of people are like, oh, you don't talk about ADA enough. Some say I talk about it too much. Maybe that means I'm doing the right thing here, kind of going in the middle. But I did buy some ADA. What do you think about that, TJ? He's signaling, I'm going all in. I'm actually selling my assets, presumably to buy Cardano. I don't think he's talking about Bitcoin here. Is this bullish for ADA? Can this save Cardano?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not surprised. I think it's, again, people that have been in this space a long time, they know when the right timing is. And I think this is it. I think
Andy said he's buying XRP, TJ. What do you think about that?
I think it's fine. I think he's buying strong. I think he's probably buying some Bitcoin too. I love this energy from Charles. I think he's kind of saying, if you watch a little bit more of the clip, that a lot of this stuff that he's got doesn't provide him much joy, much value, that sort of stuff. He's saying he's going all in. He's playing with Claude, which I love. That's what I'm obsessed with right now. So seeing him in kind of curiosity, explore, adventure mode, I think is very positive for Cardano and just Charles as a person. So I'm here for it for him as a human being. Will it save Cardano? Who knows? I don't know if he would probably say Cardano doesn't need saving. In a lot of ways, he's I think feels like he's done what he needs to do with Cardano, and it's got plenty of.
And then people look at the price and be like, "What are you smoking, Charles? I need something."
Well, I mean, I think it's, in a lot of ways, again, I would put Charles in that category of people that do really care about freedom and the ethos of crypto when it very first started. And I think in a lot of ways, Cardano is pretty secure from manipulation in that regard. It is very decentralized.
Ready for this chart action, TJ? Look at this right here. So this is a parallel range, and TJ Disco fan, we're just hitting the tops right here. You can see the tops, but what happens when you create a parallel range, bring it down? Oh, wait, is it going to? Is it going to?
Yeah.
Look at that right there. Strong bounce.
Well, and the USDC thing, I think, is pretty strong. I know we talked about putting a video out, and then the market kind of had other plans, but USDC coming.
Let's go ahead and tell them. I filmed and edited a Cardano video Friday, set to release Sunday, and this was like Friday afternoon. We're like, all right, this news might be, 36 hours old. That should be good. Not this weekend. 36 hours later was basically 36 months later. And I saw you're like, hey, well, you mentioned this 4YCMs. It's like some protein calcium bond. I looked it up. I don't know what the heck you're saying. You mean like some 4-year candles? Maybe you didn't mean the calcium bond there. Have you ever heard of 4YCMs?
4-year cycle
Either that or
Market,
it's
4-year
a
cycle market. Oh, 4-year cycle maxis to feel max pain and be punished in 2026.
4-year
That's what he's
cycle
referring.
maxis.
So yeah,
Gotta
and
go.
I would agree with that. I mean, that's part of why I'm not in that category. I do believe we're speed running a lot of this stuff, and a lot of things have been different from the 4-year cycle in the past. Now, people get caught up in the nuances. I think, like, so to some of us who have really studied this and spent a lot of time, that in saying I believe the 4-year cycle is over, meaning we're going to rebound much quicker. We're not going to be down only until October, November of this year. I think we're going to be moving back up in towards a bullish trend in 2026. My prediction is, a lot of it happening, starting to be extremely bullish this summer, May, June. Again, get Powell out, get the new Fed chair in. Maybe we get a rate cut in June, get the big, beautiful bill kicking and the money printer kicked on, the Fed balance sheet growing. I think all of those things will happen this year and be bullish for Bitcoin. That doesn't mean I don't think 70s were possible. We've been talking about that for a long time. So again, people get caught up in the nuance of saying the 4-year cycle is or isn't. I said we had some questions in the Discord. Do I agree or disagree with Cowan? And I think in a lot of ways, Ben Cowan and I are on the same page on a lot of different stuff. There's just maybe some nuances on timing. I believe, and I could be wrong, but just from my understanding of what I've seen him say, he believes we're going to be down only for most of 2026 until October, November, maybe marking the bottom, which would be consistent with the 4-year cycle. I believe we're not going to go as far down, and we're going to start to recover from that sooner rather than later. Maybe even January, February marking the bottom. So we'll have to wait and see. Time is the only judge when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So, but yeah, I'm still in that camp of not being a 4-year cycle maxi. I would agree with Jay Andrew on that one.
All right. Time is the circle, and circle that like button and then smash that thing. Let's talk about Jupiter here. Jupiter is pumping. It had a couple things. Did have the large Coinbase integration last week. We talked about that. Also bringing on Polymarket. So Polymarket now using Jupiter to bring it to Solana, and they landed a $35 million investment deal. So Jupiter looking very good in the short term here. And I would even say the long term. Now, TJ, you mentioned the White House meeting. There's a meeting with crypto and banks on stablecoin yield. It's going to start 1 p.m. this afternoon. So we're getting the bankers, we're getting the crypto executives. They're coming to the same table. They're going to say, look, you guys need to work it out. The banks are already losing this battle because of the previous legislation that came out. If you look at the Genius Act, Coinbase, PayPal, Binance, they can give yield. The banks, you're already losing the battle. So you need to come to the table with some real, I would just say, agreements instead of just digging your heels in the sand. So that might be good. It's going to be a big week. People talking about the ISM data did come in. It looks like it was above 50. We're going to talk about what that means. We do have that Clarity House meeting later. We have job data. We have PayPal earnings. We have ADP jobs data the day after that. Google earnings on Wednesday as well. We're going to have the jobless claims on Thursday, Amazon earnings on Thursday, and then we're going to get a good consumer sentiment report and another employment report on Friday. So expect a lot of volatility. Just be careful trading in this environment here. But if the ISM is coming in above 50, this is very significant. Here's Bitcoin, copper, gold, the ISM data. ISM, essentially whether the economy's contracting or expanding. Under 50, economy shrinking. Over 50, economy's growing. Every single time since Bitcoin's inception, when it pushes back towards 52 after being in the red, it has marked the bottoms in for copper, gold, and Bitcoin begins its true expansion phase. PMI has been in by far the longest contraction ever. A lot of this is going to be just the tailwind effects of 2020. And this key piece of data explains why this bull cycle has been so different. First time Bitcoin's made new highs while PMI has been in the negative and contraction. If you just cut to the chart right here, you see the PMI chart on the bottom. Looks like we might be coming in a little bit hot. And when the PMI comes in hot, you can see copper, gold, copper pumps, and you can see Bitcoin pumps as well. I don't know if that data did come in, TJ, but that is going to be very, very big. 58K is not going to happen. PMI and business cycle are booming, as today's numbers have shown. Now, TJ, do you have that new PMI data, the new ISMN data?
I don't have today's, but I agree. The chat is going back and forth on the timing. If you're following 4-year cycle, and somebody said it's, like 2021 or late 2020. I'm in like it's early 2020. Somebody else said December 2019, which is how I feel about the liquidity cycles. But I would say right now, if you're following those cycles, it feels like we're in about January, February 2020, which again, March 12th, 2020, we all know was one last capitulation and big event. So that could be something we see here soon if we reject off 84, 85 again and go back down and test the 69K potentially. So I'm holding out some reservations that that's possible. But then after that, it was stair step. We had DeFi summer in 2020 popped off, and then it led to an incredible bull market in 2021. That's the world I think. That's timeline wise close to where we are right now.
Yeah, ISM came in pretty hot. It broke the 52 mark this morning. And if you overlay ISM to copper and gold and Bitcoin, honestly, like breaking that trend line matters a lot, especially for how beat down the ISM and just the general economy has been over the last few years. Like we were able to accomplish 126 while being below the 50 mark for the most time. So
while in quantitative tightening, yeah.
Right. So this is a very, very important signal to be seeing. Makes me pretty hopeful that, and I'm going to dive into the charts and stuff like that. But in general, this system is based on growth, and being below the ISM 50 mark really has halted a lot of that explosive growth that the system is built on relying on. This is a very, very important part. It's going to be interesting how Kevin Warsh handles the situation because, as you mentioned, he's pretty hawkish. He's almost kind of like the guy that would raise interest rates as inflation is increasing, which would be the fiscally responsible thing to do. But I think in general, seeing economic activity getting ready to tick back up leaves me actually pretty hopeful for this year leading into 2027. So that's my cautious optimism.
There you go.
Right now, people asking about copper. Copper options are basically break even today. I think they were up 20, then it was like now it's down 4%. So yeah, still coming in a little bit flat. Now we do have some breaking news. Trump launching $12 billion strategic mineral stockpile to counter China. There's going to be just more money in the system. And someone brought up SBF earlier. I don't know if you saw, SBF is back in the news. He's ramping up his Trump support following his ex-girlfriend's release from jail. And of course, his ex-girlfriend famously testified against him. Some say he was a selfish lover. That's just the rumors. Anyways, Sam Bankman-Fried, he ramped up the social media praise for Trump while taking aim at Joe Biden. Shots at Biden here just days after Caroline Ellison was released from federal custody here. Let's just go straight to it. Why I became a Republican in 22. This is from the weekend. I grew up in a liberal household. I gave $5 million in 2020. We know you gave a lot more via your companies in 2020. But then I gave tens of millions in Republicans. So now he's saying, oh, yeah, the shift happened between 20 and 22. Biden bungled crypto. He didn't have to. Plenty in the party had reasonable thoughts there, but he chose Gensler. Donald Trump is right on crypto. He also talks about some other things, criticizing the Democrats there, going in really, really hard on Biden and the Dems, and then just praising Trump. Some are saying, all right, we know what this is. And then his odds went down. If you go here, 17% chance for a pardon. It fell. I swear to God, it was 14% chance. So this article comes out, and the odds for him being released just keep plummeting here. This is who he might pardon. This is who Trump might pardon in 2027 or before 2027. We have Matt Gaetz. We have Young Thug, Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, Julian Assange, Roger Ver, Nicolas Maduro, one of the Menendez, Senator Menendez, I believe. Not, oh my God, Joe Exotic's on here. Why is Joe Exotic? All right, so that's a bad day when Joe Exotic has higher odds of getting released than you do.
Yeah.
Do Kwon also coming in.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was on the community note there too. I mean, it was basically exposed. This was Sam's plan the whole time to flip to try to get a pardon. So I don't think it's going to work. It's pretty par for the course for SBF. Say whatever you think people want to hear to get whatever you want. So
he got noted, TJ.
Yeah.
He got noted. First one, why I became a Republican. He got noted. Documents obtained describe his plan. First, go on Tucker Carlson. 2, come out as a Republican. That's potential ploy for the public opinion there. So yeah, like you said, getting noted, not a good sign there. Speaking of Trump, there is that new attack vector. It is the World Liberty Fi investment attack vector, UAE. just came out was that big whale. Now, we reported, this is months ago, this is last year, the Trump family's holdings on World Liberty Fi just suddenly plummeted. They owned like 70%. It went down to like 39 or something like that. And people were like, well, who stepped in? Who's the whale? No one knew. The rumors were it was Justin's son. A lot of people thought it was Justin's son. Kind of made sense at the time. Son, Trump, they're starting to talk a little bit more. No, it was United Arab Emirates firm. They're the ones who bought 49% of the Trump startup. But then after, they got some AI chips. And people are saying this is clear collusion. He signed the deal January 25 to purchase 49% stake in World Liberty Fi for $500 million. This was 2 days before he returned to the White House. Under the Biden administration, this prince's effort, this UAE prince, he tried to secure these U.S.-made AI chips. He was limited amid concerns. There's an investment in Hawaii, and they're thinking these chips are going to reach China. This man, Prince Tahnoon, he met multiple times with Trump senior U.S. officials, and within months, they committed to granting him hundreds of thousands of these chips annually. World Liberty Fi and White House reportedly denied any wrongdoing. Spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal Trump was not involved in the deal, did not provide any influence over U.S. policy. And this is now the third country the Democrats are throwing against Trump. Now, I think there's something suspicious there, but they also tried Russia. They also tried North Korea. They also tried Iran. If they would have led with this, maybe that would have added a little credibility. But, you know, seeing them, I almost want to say they're throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks. But TJ, this might actually stick.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Who knows? I know Elizabeth Warren, they're going to try to, if the Democrats get control, they're probably going to try to impeach Trump over this. So I'll go ahead and make that prediction here. You heard it here first. Yeah,
they'll try something. I mean, and that would, and then a poly market better would win a lot of money for making that prediction, which is not too surprising. You know, to me, is there collusion of interests with all of almost everybody in our government? Yes. You know, I don't know if you noticed this, of all the shorts we did, you did one mentioning Nancy Pelosi's trades, and that one got copyrighted for some reason. All the rest of them didn't. But, you know, this is what happens when you have rich and powerful people. They are going to take advantage of the system to their advantage. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of it. I'm not endorsing it. But I don't, doesn't surprise me one bit. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me if they, you know, if people that are opposed to Trump try to use it as leverage against it. Now it's going to be tough in the position that he's in because he's got a lot more leverage than they do in a lot of ways.
World Liberty Fi was the top gainer. It was number 2. And we look today, it's wow, something happened. Okay. So it was after 24 hours. We go to the 7-day. You'll probably see that. Yeah. So it was shortly after. It was like really, really low. And now we're getting a little bit closer to where we were peaking as far as 24 hours ago. Down for the week, but interesting price action over the last 24 hours. I mean, it is up 8%. So surprising to see the tokens going up. They're like, all right, look, guys, we got to stop the FUD. Get rid of the red candles. They can only take so much bad news.
Well, yeah. And speaking of price action, Drew, I know you wanted to cover some trades and some price action, some charts. We may have Crank jump up here with you, but I haven't seen him respond just yet. But I know he was in the chat earlier.
Yeah.
What is it you're looking at, and what is it you wanted to break down?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this general plan. I mean, I've had to watch the range that we've been kind of writhing around. It has been something kind of interesting to watch. So in general, the price to produce Bitcoin, you know, that historically has been kind of the buoy bounce point for Bitcoin's lows. And where we are right now is in that price to produce zone. This can go up to $86,000 for some US mining facilities, but in general, sits in aggregate around $74,000. And we did pop down to that zone and just about tapped the price to produce Bitcoin. Now, you know, historically, when we are in this general downtrend where you wash back down to the downside, you do have the ability to go a little bit lower than the price to produce. So I do have to acknowledge that and kind of highlight this before I get too far into this. So in 2022, when we're at the bear market lows, we popped down below the price to produce Bitcoin by about 14%. And right now, we just started tapping the top end of this zone, but the US cost to produce a Bitcoin sits at about $86,000. So if we're looking at this, probably why we saw so much buying attempts and some power here at the buy zone at 87K. And as things sit right now, we have indeed fallen by about 14% below the cost to produce a Bitcoin in the United States. This is a data point that matters a lot to me for my trading patterns here. And, you know, if I'm such a lucky boy that I see so much FUD come in over the short term that we get near the guts of where a lot of the ETF purchases happened at the $65,000, $70,000 zone, this is highlighted as a back up the truck moment for me in terms of spot purchases of crypto. Now, what I'm buying, what I plan to buy is very whittled down. I'm tired of the VC dump schemes, and I'm really only looking at altcoins that have strong revenue and or Bitcoin. Bitcoin, Tether, strong revenue altcoins is what I'm looking at, especially in this zone. It is a buying season. We touched on the ISM data a little bit in this show here, but we came out very, very aggressively, coming in at 52.6, breaking above this mark that we've been watching for a long time on the ISM data. And this does matter. This is the copper and the ISM overlaid with Bitcoin's price right now. And as you can see, Bitcoin did not do too horribly bad as ISM data was writhing below the 50 mark for a very, very long time, almost years on end since 2023. Bitcoin did indeed rise anyways. Now, where we're sitting right, and this is a great post from Psychedelic on X here, but as Bitcoin is approaching the invalidation levels of the higher time frame structure breaks, almost everyone has now succumbed to the long bear market that everyone expects. All this linked together and telling us the same story. If the PMI closes in at 52 today, which it did indeed, a bullish signal, expects this market shock to begin a reversal phase through February. This is the data that matters. Now, I want to hop into this because obviously we have gold that's just done an incredible run, and Bitcoin is extremely beat down versus gold prices. But if you really look at where we're at on Bitcoin, you know, if I'm buying in this general zone, as long as it's close to the price to produce, that usually ends up being the right spot for me here. I did the same thing at these lows in 19 to 15K, started buying at 19, kept buying into the 15 mark, and even kept buying at 2025. Things like this are where short-term mindsets will get washed out, and that is pretty important. A lot of traders did get washed out as well with this pullback. The higher time frames on the 3-month show mass extinction event for major long positions that have all been wiped out. This is a cleansing of the palette. And really, when I'm looking at the shorter time frames here on the 1 hour, we are starting to develop a bullish divergence where the MACD, the higher lows are starting to play in here on the MACD on 1 hour, getting stronger, buying getting stronger here as the price has lower lows, which is setting up a pretty nice bounce point. And if I'm looking at this, getting so close to that general price to produce, man, if I'm not buying here, I'm dying, you know, like, and I'm in a season where I'm moving, so I'm having to do some house renovation. So I am taking profits on really old alts that are still well up. But in general, like, I feel this general range is $65,000 to $80,000. I'm going to hate myself if I'm not buying long-term spot in this position. A lot of people out there that think, you know, and there's a lot of validity to thinking that some Great Recession 2.0 is coming and things are going down only, but you cannot have a replacement of the current system or even a place at the table with the current monetary system without major disruption happening. So with that being said, I am remaining in a very bullish on Bitcoin mindset right now. As far as altcoins, I have to be super careful. There are a lot of altcoins that are going to die. I am sorry, but there are many altcoins that based their businesses on that 4-year altcoin cycle.
Before you do the altcoins, can I show one thing on the copper gold chart before we kind of switch gears here? This is very interesting. This is the copper gold 2-week chart. I posted this originally a couple weeks ago. I think it was with a gold video, or maybe no, it was ETH video, I believe. And I want to just highlight, this is what it looks like on the 2 weeks. You see, you know, very strong support here. So copper going up, gold going down is going to make these candles go up. So we're expecting copper to start gaining as gold starts to pull back. Look what happens, Drew, when I go to the daily, then I'll pass it back. Look at that right there. Copper starting to show a little bit of signs of life, folks. And I just want to highlight this because I pulled the trigger on more July copper options. And so there you go, folks. There's your alpha. I'm really liking what I'm seeing with the copper ETF options. Buying the calls here for it to go up in July. And Drew, I'll let you break down some
I love it, man.
here.
That's a really healthy thing to see for economic activity too. You know, I mean,
Yes.
everyone just thinks that we're going to just let the system collapse and they're not going to pull major prints to fix the American dollar, the American industry. I really don't think that that's reasonable. What I do want to air caution on is just throwing a dart against the wall on any and all altcoins. There are now 28 million different altcoins or meme coins within the crypto sector. And you can't just look at previous all-time highs and expect them to be revisited on any of these things. I think a massive cleansing has just happened. And so I am going to hop into the DeFi Llama metrics on where TVL is increasing and generally look at these altcoins because some crazy stuff has actually happened within the top 20 in the altcoin sector. So as things sit right now, we're seeing a slight pump. There is a CME gap that is likely to fill on Bitcoin as they were covering earlier on in the show. For Bitcoin, that's between 79.7 and 81.160. Okay, this is where the daily CME gap exists on Bitcoin. Not a bad idea to think that we're at least going to be able to see a recapturing of the CME gap, even if we are slated for more downward pressure. Some interesting things are happening on the altcoin sector right now. So the most interesting thing actually is Canton Network, which has not given a literal about the major pullback that's going on in crypto. Canton Network is up by 25% on the week. It's up 8% on the day and 3.5% nearly on the hour. So let's check out Canton Network. This is crazy. It's about to try and flip Chainlink in market cap. And it's one of the only two altcoins that I left behind. I have an indicator that I let you all know. It's every time that I need a new truck, the market hits a major pullback. And that did happen. The signal is pretty much true and tried. So the new truck indicator went off right here. I was like, there's no way that this is the local, at least, higher level before we go lower. I got my Sequoia. I fucking love the Sequoia, but yes, we did dip after that. It is true and tried. I did leave behind Canton in the bag, and I left behind Chainlink, but Canton Network is right behind Chainlink now in terms of size of market cap. This is absolutely crazy to see. It's nice to see Chainlink is bouncing by about 4.5% right now. Hyperliquid with massive revenue, lots of trading activity, and more people wanting to move into this trading platform. It is up 11.8%, which is absolutely insane, but also logical to see because its revenue metrics are high, and you can see the use case of it has not been shaken. The overall idea behind Hyperliquid's rise still remains. Now, in terms of where DeFi is and total value locked in crypto ecosystems and the guts of why crypto is so aggressive and such a competitor against banks, the TVL is taking a slight haircut, but remains a series of higher lows, a very strong series of higher lows at that. Now, if we look a little bit deeper into the lending market of crypto and DeFi, I have something pretty important to note here. This is Aave pulling back much more aggressively than Morpho in terms of TVL. So if you go check out Aave, in terms of its TVL, a very sharp decline. So as I was closing up shop on Friday, we were right around $32 billion in TVL for Aave. It dipped down very aggressively, and now it is at $29.7 billion. Meanwhile, on the competitor side, the second biggest lending market in crypto, Morpho, really isn't getting shaken by this current market pullback. So seeing this, it's kind of showing me that Morpho is going to be aggressively competing with Aave for mindshare becoming the biggest lending market in crypto. And the thing that makes me feel very strongly about lending in general is how scared banks are showing their cards to be when it comes to how much yield people can actually get out of the lending market in crypto. This is going to entice buyers. I think regulatory clarity is something that will help larger institutions move in. But regardless, you're going to have the teenager syndrome. If the government says that we can't have massive gains in terms of DeFi lending and yield in crypto, it's simply going to push more people into it. I think DeFi and crypto is going to be fine. This isn't something that I'm horribly concerned about, but I am being very selective about what I choose. Now, when I shift gears into the other use cases and utility zones of crypto, RWA.XYZ is showing a very strong uptick in overall total real world asset values. This is not taking a pullback. Yes, there's a big market collapse with all these vaporware projects, etc. Bitcoin coming near the price to produce, and everyone loses their mind. And you got to think about this. I did want to say this. A lot of people that are here then watching and willing to pay attention to Bitcoin while it's not going straight up into the right have spent years learning about monetary theory, about all the different use cases of DeFi in crypto, and also what Bitcoin stands to be able to achieve as the way we move money changes, right? We've spent years researching, but all of a sudden you have a 35% dip, and all of that research, all of that conviction is washed away. It's a little bit crazy to me. You know, we've been in crypto for a very long time. The last bear market, we pulled back by 75% because we overextended and had to come back down to the price to produce. Now people are snooping around trying to get $30,000 Bitcoin. I think outside of a Great Depression and something cataclysmic like that happening, we're probably not going to see those levels. Honestly, the price to produce is likely to hold us up right now. We need retail to come back in the market. Retail died on Solana meme coins. So that is, I'm sorry to say, retail is not in charge of this market, you guys. And that is where macroeconomic theory, ISM data, copper valuations, activity in the economic sector in general is going to matter a lot. It's going to matter a lot, whether you like it or not. These types of conversations and data points are more important than what retail is doing. And a good example of that is Canton Network. Canton doesn't care at all about retail involvement, anything like that. And you know what? I'm actually going to have a pretty exclusive interview here on Discover Crypto with the founders of Canton Network. This is a project that we called out before it was even launched. And I did move into it originally at 11 cents. I bought more at 7 cents, and now it's sitting at 18 cents, while the rest of the market has seemingly lost all hope or dreams of good things happening in the future. This is where you have to really take a look at what metrics are going on the underscope. And on RWA.XYZ, it's pretty simple to go here and go to the bottom. You can get all the different layouts of top transfers. You can get all kinds of information on total network, RWA league table information. And this is where Canton came out of the gates with $357 billion in total real world value, real world asset value on chain. This is a very important metric that I saw come up out of nowhere. And honestly, there are some sneaky picks in here. I see DCA and Prey highlighting a very interesting project to me. And honestly, we were talking about Jeb McCaleb earlier on in the show. Stellar Lumens is a project that remains pretty aggressive when it comes to mindshare and growth within the RWA sector. So there's a lot of logic behind breaking apart and accessing liquidity on assets that historically the liquidity to get access to was very difficult, right? This is single family homes. This is yachts. You had to sell a yacht to access that value, right? Instead, they can tokenize, they can fractionalize these assets and use that to go invest in other ventures. And there's all kinds of interest in the next set of technology, AI expansion. All of these things are happening at the same time, which does end up being a DDoS of information on all of our mindsets. We're trying to look down the path of the right, biggest expansion of monetary value. But we have an AI super cycle, stablecoin super cycle. We have Bitcoin being adopted by world governments. We have a lot of things going on right now. So I think looking at real data is going to matter more than not. And there is one other altcoin that I actually wanted to keep snooping on in this massive pullback. I look at these pullbacks as an opportunity for me to really understand and reevaluate which projects are still making good revenue and which projects are likely to be the winners of the next iteration of a Bitcoin pump. I don't think Bitcoin is done. I think the people calling for a forever bear market on Bitcoin, that it's going to zero, they're just a little bit salty. They probably bought the top and then they sold the bottom. It is what it is. And that mindset happens. But the other project I wanted to check out today is Ondo. We did have Ondo roll out and actually make good on tokenizing stocks. Got insights and people involved with BlackRock and Securitize. Securitize used to have a board member named Paul Atkins on the board. That board member is now the commissioner, the lead of this US SEC. So this guy is connected, Ondo, hoisting up a little bit higher than other altcoins in my mind from these connections. So I'm actually going to go hop into Ondo. First, I'm going to go look at the price, and then I'll gut it and kind of see what the TVL has done over the weekend, as so much fear has hit the market. So let's go check it out, Ondo. And as I said, I did like this is a project I've already taken a really great amount of profits on when we popped above $2, and then I felt the market was getting a death wobble at a dollar mark. We kept hitting our head on the dollar level, so I took that profits, and now we have cascaded down to 28 cents. There are token unlocks that are ongoing right now. So the current unlocked tokens, we got to take a look at this first and foremost. Circulating supply at 4.86 billion Ondo tokens. The total supply is at 10 billion. And I do believe that unlock is still ongoing. We have to understand that early adopters, early investors into this are selling. They have the tokens at dirt cheap prices, and they are taking those profits, actively playing into this cascade to the downside. But I do want to go gut what's going on with TVL on Ondo to see if it's maybe a potential time frame for arbitrage, where you have the price low, the sentiment is FUD all over the place. The TVL is going absolutely ballistic. So watching this is quite interesting to me. Obviously I had to protect myself when I saw the death wobble on the chart and kind of get out of the way of these token unlocks. In general, though, you're getting near token prices that were at the release of Ondo token, which is absolutely insane to see, as the TVL has now hit $2.7 billion. This is an upward growth in terms of overall value on chain. Insiders dumping the price down on the token. I am not going to be pulling the trigger on reallocating until I see a higher low and general bullish divergences on the larger time frames for Ondo, but it is now on my radar with making good on the tokenization of the stocks. TVL has gone strong. Insiders are taking their money. Let the dust settle, and then I might be able to reallocate at an even lower level. I think I got in at like 38 cents. Was able to sell above 2, then sold at $1, got out of the way of this major pullback. But before we get too deep down the rabbit hole of DeFi TVL, there is a project that has had my interest for quite some time. Even back to, I want to look at how long ago it was, but TensorTau. Let's go look at TensorTau. And drop me messages in the chat if you have tokens that you're curious about, if they look like they might be experiencing a true death wobble right now, because that is the million, aka $1 billion level question that we have on our minds. As I am going to stand on my business. A lot of altcoins are going to die. A lot of altcoins that aren't generating revenue, that have lost a narrative, that community is beating up. I think that there's a lot of pain to come for many, many different altcoins. Okay, so let's go to Ondo, or rather Tau. Let's go to Tau on the larger time frames to see if we can snoop around and look at potential bullish divergences. This is what I want to go actually look at on TensorTau. Now, throwback to everyone that was with me on the basement. We were covering this thing and snooping around on it at 40, 50 bucks. And now it's defended this support level 3 times provably so far, and it is right back to that main support at $200 flat. Very, very interesting. Now, what I'm looking for are we ready to reverse? First, I look at Bitcoin, the aggregate honestly, Bitcoin looks kind of bouncy right. So then I look at the strongest altcoins. Tau is in my mind one of those. Let's go look at the lower time frames to see if we have any bullish divergences coming up. So we got the MACD. I'm keeping market cipher up here, but I might want to collapse this just to not confuse everyone here. So not seeing a bullish divergence on the 4-hour for potential Tau yet. We have basically a flat line on this. If you pull the data from all the way to December 2025, then yeah, in general, you are kind of have like a sneak actually all the way through this. This is actually quite interesting. And the price has been cascading to the downside, right? So seeing this, actually, this kind of matches up with damn near everything on this. This is interesting to me. Price going down while the selling pressure is weakening, setting you up for a potential macro reverse. So actually, looking at the 4-hour, it's not looking too bad. Let's zoom in a little bit on the 1 hour just to get a better glimpse of what we're looking at here. Because this is where on my mind's at. It's, now the flush has happened. We can look and see, are we stabilizing? Are we getting ready for that pump? So I'll delete these 4-hour divergences here. On the 1 hour, it's not shining that, oh my God, we have to pump from here, right? It's still looking very wobbly, but the 4-hour really is painting quite an interesting picture for me, seeing the selling pressure getting weaker and weaker, and the price now at that main point where it's defended itself many, many times, right? It has absolutely pumped crazy up to like $700. Then the big pullback. Potential Tau is, Rob, I think DZ said it best, where it's the easiest altcoin connected to AI to get the average person's head or the average institution's head wrapped around. It has the same supply level as Bitcoin. It's a finite supply. And you do have a lot of actual building of AI direct products within the potential Tau ecosystem. So this is one of the stronger projects, in my opinion. Where the big question, I want to back to the Bitcoin boat here, is on the weekly time frames. Let's check out Market Cipher on the weekly time frames, because we had printed that red dot and I had to throw in the towel. Fine, we're going lower. When we print the red dot, we are starting to go into the red on money flow, but this thing is heavily oversold right now. Absolutely. And this is the same kind of buildup that we saw in August of 2022. So we have weekly market cipher signals showing the same kind of design with a double green dot followed by a red, just some general chop, but you're basically at the bottom as you're getting near the price to produce, which was at 19. The same damn thing is going on right now. Price to produce sitting around 74 to 86, doing that little wobble dance and putting in the green, heavily oversold dot previous to this, and then a red dot in between. It's the same structure as the last bottom of Bitcoin's price. So in this general environment, I'm still happily trading this environment. There's a lot of volatility. That's being very good to me in terms of trades and tethering. Shout out to the quant in our Discord for giving me confluence. I might have my own ideas, but then the quant comes and reaffirms those ideas. Those trades have been very, very powerful. Very thankful for the quant, because my mind and my heart wanted Bitcoin to continue going up when we're at $100,000. The quant, he's like, no, Drew, no, we are going lower. And so he allowed me to make a lot of tether on the way down here. But in general, guys, like the long term and what I think is going to happen is basically this. So we've washed down to the price to produce zone that I've been looking for since we lost that 100K mark. And the quant told me, get your head out of your ass. Understand that there's pain. I acknowledge that. I made the tether on the way down. But Standard Chartered and some of the larger organizations are still targeting $150,000 Bitcoin this year, right? The washout has happened. $150,000 Bitcoin from the zone that we just dropped down to is basically looking for 100% pump. And Bitcoin absolutely is capable of putting that 100% pump in, all, in my opinion, driven by this ISM data. Now peeking its head above the ground, the copper activity is increasing. Copper to gold ratio hitting an extremely low level. I think gold has had essentially a short-term blow off top. And Now economic activity is going to kick over. It's for the people that have conviction and longer term mindsets that I feel like are really, really going to win in this environment. And if you don't have either DeFi going for you or trading or just a general way to mine fiat to buy low prices of Bitcoin, this is where the buying action is, where everyone comes back to you 3 years from now. How did you get so lucky, Jim? It's not luck. It's about having conviction, forethought on where prices can actually go, and then taking action when we do hit those levels. So I wouldn't get too spooked with everything going on right now. We just tapped the price to produce zone I've been looking for since we lost the 100K mark, and the quant came in and helped me look down to these levels. Now we popped on it. I hope you guys aren't getting so worried about it. I did see Solana was brought up in the chat, and Solana is something that I do feel is here to stay. So I feel like it's valid to chart it out. Let's go check out Solana. When I was walking in the office, I saw we hit about $100 per Solana token. Let's go check out. Oh my gosh. So we popped down to $96 per Solana. Let's look at the larger time frames here. The weekly primarily is what I like to start off with. And holy God, look at how sold off Solana is on the MACD, hitting a -16. This is even worse than when Solana had that tariff trade crash out pullback. And the next lowest level was literally the dang near bottom where Solana was $27 when the MACD hit below the 20 mark. So we are very, very heavily oversold on Solana. Same general weekly market cipher setup. And these volatility waves are getting to the, every time you hit the volatility wave at the 55 or more in pullback level on market cipher signals, that at least plays into it, very minimum, a short-term strong pump. We've only had this indicator go off 5 times, maybe 6 times in the history of Solana. And people that bought this dip in general, people are asking how they got so lucky. It's not luck. It's not luck. None of this is luck. It's all about paying attention to the charts, being locked in, constantly learning about the market. Where Solana is right now, it's very, very similar to Bitens or Tau, and a lot of stronger altcoins, be it if they have a lot of holders like XRP or Solana. There's a lot of things happening for Solana, even poly-market integrations that are coming up. I think Solana is here to stay. It's one of the larger networks. And really anything in this zone of $80 to $100 likely going to be a bounce point from just a structural standpoint on this project. So you're out there hoping that everything goes to zero. I hope you have a plan. If it does go to zero in general, I'm feeling a zone of opportunity is now upon us. Yes, things are scary. They're calling this Fudguary, all of these different funny little names, but these are the time frames where you lock in, you buy, and it's not luck, it's autism. Maybe it is autism. But being this way is how I was tangibly able to change my life in crypto. You will be buying the crypto. People are going to call you a fool. They're going to call you an autist. Nothing's going to make sense to them on why you're buying. But these are the times where legends are made, right? These are the times where legends are made. So I would stay very, very closely connected to all the information that's coming on, and especially that ISM data, seeing economic activity make its way back to the fun zone for the American economy. I doubt the Trump administration is going to go quietly into the night on that. I love you guys. Stay based and join me on the blockchain basement next. There is a lot of things to discuss. There's so much going on in the world. So I have a whole slate of news that I got to cover on the blockchain basement next, but stay tuned.
We just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet, helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.